say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave, the brave. Wilhelmus van Nassau, ben ik van Duitse bloed. Den vaderland getrouw blijf ik tot in den dood. Een prinsen van Oranje ben ik vrij onverveerd. Den koning van Hispanje heb ik altijd geëerd.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this special program about Breukelen and Brooklyn. My name is Ab Reiners. I'm the mayor of the municipality of Stichtse Vecht in the Netherlands. Stichtse Vecht is a municipality that Breukelen, the original Brooklyn, has been part of for the last 10 years. Today, May 21st, is an important day in the historic connection between our original town of Breukelen and the New York City borough of Brooklyn. On this day, in the year 1646, the first two representatives were chosen to form the government of the farmers' village Breukelen on Long Island, right across Manhattan. It was a small start that made great things happen. In the mid-1600s, the Dutch town of Breukelen was little but quite important. It was our golden age, here in the Netherlands. A lot of successful merchants from the city of Amsterdam came to Breukelen and built impressive summer residences on the river Vecht. So it was a logical step to name the closest village from New Amsterdam on the East River after Breukelen. From Dutch perspective, it is funny that Breukelen grew to metropole proportions and even included Utrecht and Amersfoort. Brooklyn became a world-famous brand. And in Breukelen and in Stichtse Vecht, we are proud of that. I think the bridge between Breukelen and Brooklyn has been very special over the past centuries. It's a bit of a strange relationship in terms of scale, but the connection is unbreakable, for we are named after each other. And it's great that we have the opportunity to commemorate this unique Breukelen Bridge during this unique historic year. After 375 years of Brooklyn history, it's worthwhile to look back in time. I'm thrilled that historians on both sides of the Atlantic are willing to dive into all these stories. Also, it's very good news that those stories can be presented later this year, online and offline. Later in this video program, you can enjoy a sneak preview. So, hoping that this pandemic will soon be under control, we look forward to connecting in person. I hope everyone on both sides of the Atlantic will enjoy all the activities for this special year.
Hello, I'm Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. It is with great pleasure I bring you greetings on behalf of the 2.6 million residents of Brooklyn. Today, we take a moment to recognize the 375 years of history between Brooklyn and Brooklyn. On this day, in 1646, Brooklyn received its proud name. And to this day, many of our street names and neighborhoods still reflect the original Dutch. Names like Nostrand, Wyckoff, Garrison, New Utrecht, and Stuyvesant. And our motto on the Brooklyn seal maintains the original Dutch motto, unity makes strength. Brooklyn and New York City are known for being a melting pot, and the Dutch have certainly added to that mix. Thank you to Mayor Reinders and his team for taking the time to acknowledge this moment in our combined history. And as we sign our official friendship agreement today, let us continue to work together to strengthen the connection between our cities and to bring culturally exchanges to our respective communities. Because, as Brooklyn Seal says, unity makes strength.
Dear Borough President Adams, dear Eric, it's my honor and a pleasure to give these two unique prints of a view of the old town of Brooklyn to you, to remember and to commemorate 375 years of a unique historic tie between Brooklyn and Brooklyn.
Distinguished Brooklyn Borough President Adams, distinguished Mayor Reinders, I congratulate you with the signing of the friendship agreement between Brooklyn and Breukelen. We can trace back the origins of Brooklyn to this day, May 21st, 1646, exactly 375 years ago, when two magistrates of the village of Nieuw Breukelen were elected. We couldn't be more thrilled that the friendship between the Netherlands and the United States is still strong, even after 400 years. The longest unbroken, peaceful relationship between the US and any other country. Our legacy is not only visible in the name Brooklyn, in Dutch colonial houses, or in words that we use, like cookie, dollar, or stoep. The Dutch legacy goes much further than that. Today, we share a sense of entrepreneurship, tolerance. We embrace diversity and municipal governance. All notions that were also part of the DNA of the Dutch influence of that 17th century. In that sense, the motto on Brooklyn's seal and flag, "Unity makes strength," is still as appropriate as ever. Today we honor and celebrate that friendship, and we look forward to continue to build upon it. Thank you.
Brooklyn, New York, bekend om haar bruisende culturele leven. En Breukelen, Stichtse Vecht, bekend om haar buitenplaatsen aan de Vecht. Wat zij gemeen hebben is de naam. Brooklyn is nu 375 jaar geleden vernoemd naar het Nederlandse Breukelen. De banden tussen beide plaatsen toen en nu worden dit jaar herdacht. Terug in de tijd. Brooklyn was een van de nederzettingen die begin 17e eeuw aan de East River werden gesticht door Nederlanders. Zij vestigden zich hier voor de handel in beverbont, in opdracht van de West-Indische Compagnie. Ze gaven hun handelsnederzettingen Nederlandse stadsnamen, zoals Haarlem, nu Harlem, Vlissingen, nu Flushing, Nieuw-Amsterdam, nu New York en Breukelen, nu Brooklyn. Een van de initiatiefnemers van de latere West-Indische Compagnie was raadspensionaris Johan van Oldenbarnevelt. Hij was begin 17e eeuw de eigenaar van kasteel Gunterstein in Breukelen, gelegen naast onze eigen Brooklyn Bridge.
Bertine, wij staan hier in de pronkzaal van een van de allermooiste buitenplaatsen aan rivier de Vecht. Het was eigendom van een van de grote voorstanders van het stichten van Nieuw-Nederland. En dat was raadspensionaris Johan van Oldenbarnevelt. Toen Nieuw-Nederland en Breukelen wat later gesticht zijn, is hij geëerd door de benaming Brooklyn.
Ja, dat klopt. En we hebben hier ook nog een heel mooi schilderij. Waarschijnlijk geschilderd door de gebroeders Saftleven, waarin hij wordt gesymboliseerd als de wijze uil. Die wordt verjaagd door volgelingen van prins Maurits. En hij staat te paard, staat hij daar heel tevreden naar te kijken.
Het was de Gouden Eeuw. De Hollandse schepen voeren over de wereldzeeën en de economie in de Republiek bloeide als nooit tevoren. De rijk geworden Amsterdamse kooplieden bouwden statige zomerhuizen buiten de stad, hun buitenplaatsen. Vooral aan de Vecht, waar er wel 200 gebouwd werden. Eén daarvan was Goudenstein in Maarssen. Dit was gebouwd in opdracht van de Huidekopers, een belangrijke Amsterdamse familie die vaak burgemeesters voor de stad leverde. Nu is het het gemeentehuis van de gemeente Stichtse Vecht, waar Breukelen toe behoort.
En hoe stond het erbij in de 17e eeuw?
Ja, in de 17e eeuw is dus deze buitenplaats gesticht. Het was eigenlijk heel normaal, werd dat op enig moment in die tijd, juist om de stad te kunnen ontvluchten. De Goudenstein is in die tijd door de familie Huidekoper opgericht, zogezegd. En is er eigenlijk jarenlang, eigenlijk tot in 1950, 1952 aan toe, de residentie geweest van de familie en de nakomelingen.
Tegelijk met de bouw van de buitenplaatsen aan de rivieren rondom Amsterdam werden aan de rivieren van de oostkust van Amerika de eerste Hollandse handelsnederzettingen gesticht. Hoe die komst van de buitenlanders toen gezien werd, toont het schilderij De Verovering van Amerika in het Rijksmuseum.
Deze viering van Brooklyn 375 jaar brengt ons toch in het Rijksmuseum. En daar staan we voor een geweldig schilderij.
Ja, dit is een schilderij van Jan Jansen Mostaat, een hele bekende Haarlemse schilder uit de vroege 16e eeuw. En we zien de verovering van Amerika.
Bijzonder is dat dit specifieke schilderij weer banden heeft met Breukelen. Het is namelijk in 2007 door het Rijksmuseum gekocht uit de naoorlogse erfenis van Jacques Goudsticker. Deze beroemde kunsthandelaar was in de jaren 1930 eigenaar van kasteel Nijrode in Breukelen. Goudsticker gebruikte het kasteel als exclusieve galerie voor zijn kunstcollectie.
We hebben een schilderij gezien in het Rijksmuseum dat in de handen van deze kunsthandelaar was. Maar misschien wilt u vertellen wat hij voor Nijrode betekende.
Ja, hij was Goudsticker, de eigenaar van Nijrode, die het in 1930 heeft gekocht. In het interbellum tot de Tweede Wereldoorlog was hij de eigenaar. En die heeft heel veel betekend voor het kasteel en voor het landgoed.
Direct na de Tweede Wereldoorlog is hier Nijrode Business Universiteit gevestigd. De enige Nederlandse privé-universiteit. Dit naar idee van Albert Plesman, de oprichter van de KLM. Erfgoed en kunst blijven sindsdien hier in de belangstelling. Dit waren maar een paar van de vele banden tussen Brooklyn en Breukelen. Ontdek er meer tijdens dit herdenkingsjaar, onder andere bij de tentoonstellingen die op stapel staan. 375 jaar Breukelen Brooklyn Bridge. 375 jaar bijzondere historie met bijzondere banden.
We live in a city with street names like Vanderbilt, Bergen, Lefferts, Remsen, Wyckoff, Nostrand, Stuyvesant, and so many more in an area originally named Breukelen. The architecture, language, and culture of New Netherland influences New York today, even if most modern-day New Yorkers have little idea of the history beneath their feet. The Dutch were the first Europeans to settle here in the Hudson Valley and the Long Island area of New York State. And they left an indelible mark that still exists today in 21st century Brooklyn. I'm Ron Schweiger, the Brooklyn Borough historian, and I'd like to take you on a brief history tour of how Breukelen, from the Netherlands, is today's Brooklyn, with a lot of Dutch still remaining here today. New Netherland was a colony founded by the Dutch on the east coast of North America in the early 1600s. It extended from Albany in the north to Delaware in the south. In New Netherland, there were familiar-sounding places: Lang Eiland, Breukelen, Haarlem, Staten Island, all testaments to the legacy of New Netherland and its contributions to beginnings of American history and culture. The name Brooklyn is derived from the original Dutch colonial name, Breukelen. The Dutch colonists named it after the scenic town of Breukelen in the Netherlands. The village of Breukelen was located directly across the East River from New Amsterdam in what is now Brooklyn Heights. Many Brooklyn neighborhoods today are ethnic enclaves, and perhaps someone knew something a long time ago, because Brooklyn's official motto displayed on the borough seal and flag is Eendracht maakt macht, which translates from early modern Dutch as unity makes strength. But Breukelen was just one of 5 towns settled under Dutch rule within the area of today's borough. The others were New Amersfoort, New Utrecht, Boswick, and Midwoud. Breukelen, or today's Brooklyn, and its patchwork street patterns and neighborhoods is a direct result of the area having started as 5 separate Dutch towns. By 1652, the village of Midwoud, or Middle Woods, came into being. The name it eventually received under the English Flatbush is not of English origin, but a corruption of the Dutch Vlakbos, or wooded plain. The area that became famous in the first half of the 20th century as the home of the Brooklyn Dodgers was renowned in the 17th century as the home of the first Dutch church in the region, outside of New Amsterdam. The Flatbush Reformed Protestant Dutch Church, also known as the Flatbush Reformed Church, is a historic Dutch Reformed church. The church complex consists of the church, cemetery, parsonage, and church house. That location where the church stands was the center of the village of Flatbush. The land on which the complex sits has been in continuous use for religious purposes longer than any other in New York City. The congregation was founded in 1654. The current 2.5-story stone federal-style church building was constructed later and completed in 1798, and it is the 3rd church building on the site. The bodies of American soldiers who died in the Battle of Long Island, now known as the Battle of Brooklyn, were reportedly buried underneath the church structure. The cemetery is the last resting place for most of the founding families of Flatbush. The Peter Lefferts House was rebuilt following the Revolutionary War in Flatbush, but as a fine example of Dutch farmhouse architecture. The house originally stood in the village of Flatbush. It was moved into Prospect Park in 1918. Today, Lefferts Historic House operates a children's museum highlighting of the Lefferts family life in Kings County over 3 centuries. The house today serves as a museum featuring a working garden, historic artifacts, period rooms, exhibits, and activities such as candle making and butter churning. Peter Clayson Wyckoff built his house in New Amersfoort in 1652, and the much renovated home still stands and is one of the oldest structures in New York, a historic house at 5816 Clarendon Road in the Canarsie, East Flatbush neighborhood of Brooklyn. The house is estimated to be one of the oldest surviving examples of a Dutch frame house in America, and it was one of the first structures built by Europeans on Long Island. The majority of the current structure was added in the 19th century with the small kitchen section dating back to the 18th century. It was declared a National Historic Landmark in 1967 and is the first New York City designated landmark. The Flatlands Dutch Reformed Church, also known as Flatlands Reformed Church, is a historic Dutch Reformed church in the Flatlands neighborhood of Brooklyn. The complex consists of the church, administrative building, and cemetery. The current church was built in 1848 in the Greek Revival style. The cemetery contains about 1,500 burials dating to 1660. In 1643, a vast tract of more than 200 acres on westernmost Long Island, running along the shore of the bay and stood opposite Staten Island, was patented. New Utrecht remained a remote and rather independent farming village until the late 1800s. Today, New Utrecht is a neighborhood within the area of Bensonhurst. One of its oldest buildings, the New Utrecht Reformed Church, is a direct descendant of the Dutch Reformed Church founded there in 1677. New Utrecht Reformed Church is the fourth oldest Reformed church in America. Its congregation is affiliated with the Reformed Church in America, a Protestant denomination. The Liberty Pole in front of the church is the sixth on the site of the present church. It was originally erected in 1783 at the end of the Revolutionary War to harass departing British troops. The present church was built in 1828 of stones taken from the original church. Construction was supervised by a U.S. Army engineer who also led the construction of Fort Hamilton at New York Harbor. The church was designated a National Historic Landmark in 1966. Both the church and the cemetery are listed in the National Register of Historic Places. In 1660, a group of French immigrants applied to Peter Stuyvesant, Director General of New Netherland, for a patent to start a community. The new community of Bushwick, or Boswick, quickly filled with residents. One reminder of its Dutch beginning today remains. The South Bushwick Reformed Church is a historic Dutch Reformed church in Bushwick. The complex consists of the church and attached Sunday school building. The church was organized in 1851 by members of the Bushwick Reformed Church that dates back to 1654. Brooklyn's Dutch beginnings are also represented in the renowned Brooklyn Museum on Eastern Parkway. The Jan Martin Schenck House is the oldest architectural period room collection. It is also the most complex of the period rooms in terms of reconstruction and interpretation. During the 275 years that the house stood in its original location in the Mill Basin section of Brooklyn, it underwent many changes, but the museum is a portal to its origins. The house is a simple two-room structure with a central chimney. The house had a high-pitched roof that created a large loft for storage. The roof was covered with shingles and the exterior walls were clad with horizontal wood clapboard siding. I hope you enjoyed the tour, and I hope you can come on your own to visit these Dutch locations that still exist today. Tot ziens, Dutch for goodbye.